Have you ever gotten to see a coral reef up close? To admire its beauty, to touch it, to feel it, to see into the life that it has? Well, maybe you have, maybe you haven't, but the chances that you will in the future are much lower. That is because of coral bleaching and the higher pH levels in our oceans today. The cause of this problem is us. And today, I'll tell you how to fix it. Here on Saving Our Only Planet Today, we are looking at coral reefs and them dying out due to higher pH levels and, well, warmer water and expanding oceans. To sum it up, coral reefs are dying, and speculations by scientists studying the Great Barrier Reef say that the reefs should all be dead by about 2050. But the question is, how do we stop this? How do we save the great wonders of our world? Especially this one before it dies out in a meager 30 years? Well, the answer is obvious, but I'll explain it anyway. Let's start at the beginning with the source of our problem. The source is our atmosphere. I'll just quickly sum it up. The atmosphere is comprised of three main gases on Earth, including nitrogen, oxygen, and carbon dioxide. Of these three, carbon dioxide is the most helpful and the most harmful because it is a greenhouse gas. Basically, it acts like a greenhouse. So, sunlight passes through it on its way to Earth, but then when it's reflected back towards space, instead of just passing through it, some light is reflected back to Earth. This keeps some heat in on our planet. So this is what keeps us alive and not like a planet like Mars. But this could also turn our planet into a planet like Venus that's comprised mainly of carbon dioxide. So really, where are we getting this extra CO2 from? Well, I'll explain that right now. We get it from combustion engines. Explaining exactly how a combustion engine works will take a while, so I'll give you the short version. Basically, we use a carbon-based substance to create energy. Here's how it works. You take a fuel source, we'll say something like ethanol, and then we heat it to a high degree. This causes the atomic bonds between the hydrogen and the carbon to break. Once this happens, bonds immediately reform with the surrounding oxygen in our air. When this happens, energy is created along with H2O and CO2. Now, H2O is water, and this really doesn't cause that big of a problem. But the CO2 does, because when extra CO2 is created, it slowly makes its way into our atmosphere. And when this happens, we have increased greenhouse effects on our planet. And when this happens, the global temperature rises, as well as affecting some things in the jet stream, causing some places to be drastically colder, and some places, especially like England, to have different weather patterns. That's why it's been getting really cold recently. But that's not what we're here to talk about. Another result from it is that carbon dioxide is naturally taken out of our atmosphere by plants and by our oceans. In our oceans, the water absorbs the CO2 and becomes no longer water but carbonic acid, which is, as you guessed it, more acidic than our normal oceans are, which can be a problem to most marine lives because it dissolves their shells to some degree. Also, there's another problem. The problem is warmer water. Warmer water not only takes up more space because of the atoms being farther apart, but it also has an interaction with the algae. You see, coral is comprised of two main things, the coral and the algae. So the algae and the coral have a symbiotic relationship. But when the water warms up, the algae leaves the coral, and then you have bleached coral left behind. So all that beauty, all that life, and the main ecosystem of the reefs is completely gone with rising ocean temperatures. That happens when we have something like global warming. But there is a solution. People in different fields, there's an annotation here that will take you to the article, but they have come up with a solution to our problem. The solution is genetic alteration. Genetic alteration is something that we've used in many cases to make food easier to produce and pretty much make our lives easier in some cases. So for coral, we could genetically alter them to adapt and better fit their environment for this situation, so that they could survive the hardships of acidification and of the coral bleaching due to higher temperatures. But the main problem with this solution is that it could cause unknown things to happen, like with rabbits in Australia, or lionfish in the Caribbean, or kudzu in the United States. We don't know what could happen. By bringing in an invasive species, we might just be doing the same thing by genetically altering one in this system. So, this should not be something immediately implemented, but it's always something that we could use in case of the worst. But there is another solution. The other solution is one that nature has already developed for us. Plants. Plants naturally, as I said earlier, take in CO2 in their form of cellular respiration that they call photosynthesis. In photosynthesis, plants take in CO2 and give out oxygen, basically the process that animals do in reverse. So, this is a natural way to reduce CO2, but it's not enough. So, my proposal is the genetic alteration of plants. We can genetically alter plants so that they can absorb more CO2 and put out more oxygen. Thereby, we can drain the CO2 levels from our atmosphere and reduce global warming at the same time. Though, you may be asking, where do we put all these plants? If we're going to do this on a large scale thing, how are we going to water them? Where are we going to put them? Well, if you regularly watch The Cosmos, which you really should, it's a good show, then you would know that Frank Schumann already came up with a solution to this. Back in the early 20th century, before World War I, he had giant solar irrigating systems put up on the banks of the Nile in Egypt to water plants to try to regrow the deserts. We could do the same thing exactly here. There are plenty of deserts with rivers along the sides of them in the world. Thereby, we could put this plan into action. Genetically engineered plants with solar irrigation to create a perfect system where we can suck global warming out of the picture by taking CO2 out of the atmosphere. And of course, if this plan can't be implemented in time, or something goes wrong, we can always use the genetic alteration on coral to save them. So, either way, those are two ways to save the coral reefs, and to stop global warming. We can stop this, guys. We can end it before it ruins our planet, before it ruins us, before it ruins our kids. This isn't their responsibility, this is ours. And those are two solutions to how to fix it. We have genetically altering coral to save it, and we have the ability to just drain it out using genetically altered plants and replanting our deserts. So, that's what we can do. We just need to do it. So, do you like my solutions? Well, if you do, comment on them in the box below. If you don't like them, well, whatever. Anyway, we also have links in the descriptions. I might also put them up as annotations to all my article sources if you want to check them out to make sure I'm not just, making this all off the top of my head. I do have some good sources behind this one, and I really think this can save our planet. But also leave some suggestions for next videos on saving our only planet. I love making these educational videos. So with that said, see you guys.